What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique, aka Unique Mazique, and this is Significant Strikes. We're talking MMA, and let's talk about the some of the biggest things that happened today. And depends on when you're watching this, but we're talking about February 17th. So I'm getting into this a little bit late, but it's been a busy, busy day in the world of Mazique. But one of the first things I want to talk about is John Jones contemplating retirement. I don't really think he's contemplating. I don't. Honestly, I shouldn't say I don't really think he's contemplating retirement. I think that there is a chance that John would do that, but even though he kind of says, "Well, I don't really care," about what people think. Excuse me. Even though he says that, I'm not 100% sure. Like nobody really 100% feels that way, right? Everybody cares a little bit about what people think. Anybody that tells you that they don't care at all is kind of lying. And John, when you're talking about fighters and performers who are used to performing in front of tens of thousands of people, they care. The fans have some play and something to say about what they do. He hears all the he hears all the talk. He hears everybody saying, that he should be fighting this person or he should be fighting that person. He hears it, right? But is he does he care enough, right, to say that I am going to bypass this fight with Alex Pereira, which is a bigger money fight for him more than likely, even though the Tom Aspinall fight is obviously a huge fight as well. But the fight with Pereira is a bigger money fight. I don't care what anybody tells you. I don't care how much pressure people are trying to put on John to have this fight. The fight against Pereira is a bigger money fight, right? I think it's an easier fight for John. Not saying that it would be easy because I don't think beating Pereira is easy for anyone, but I think it is an easier fight for him. So I understand from all standpoints why he would want to do this. He could dig his heels in the sand and say, you know what, I'm gonna fight Pereira next, so I'll just go ahead and retire. He could do that. He could walk off into the sunset. I had an interview with Tom Aspinall. If you didn't get a chance to see it, I put the link to it in the description of this video. He flat told me that he wouldn't care if John just decided to walk off and he could just, will become the undisputed heavyweight champion because John decided that he didn't want to fight him. I actually kind of believe him. I kind of believe with that particular situation because his goal is to be the heavyweight champion and to enjoy everything that comes with that. Whether that's beating John or not, I think he'd like to go through John, but I don't think he's going to sit up and just cry about it if it doesn't happen. Now, at least that's how he feels now. Because what we don't know is will he want to deal with people saying, well, you never actually beat that guy? Because I'm going to be honest, after John, there isn't a lot in the UFC's heavyweight division that'll make you stand up and go, wow, that's a heck of a fight. Whoa, I don't like just look at like 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the heavyweight division, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Like the rankings, I'm telling y'all, it's the heavyweight division is not in a strong place. Cyril Gane's number 2. I don't think anybody would favor Cyril Gane to beat Tom Aspinall. We saw John Jones demolish him. Alexander Volkov's a nice veteran, but I don't think anybody feels any way about that. Tom Aspinall's already knocked out Pavlovich. Like this, nothing. Then we're talking about Curtis Blades. Jailton Almeida's interesting because if he can get you to the ground, he can handle just about anybody. But his boxing isn't great. His stamina's not that fantastic. But he is one of the only interesting ones. As far as the rank guys, that's it. Now, there is a young heavyweight that's probably a good 4 to 5 fights away from even being anywhere close to being ready to challenge somebody for a championship. It's Taliesin Teixeira. I've been talking about him ever since I saw him on this most recent season of Dana White Contender Series. He just won his main roster debut, quickly knocked out Justin Tafa. I think he's got something. 6'8" long. He can strike. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I like that kid, but he's a long way off. So right now, the heavyweight conversation is totally John Jones and Tom Aspinall. John knows that. He's got a lot of leverage because of it. Tom Aspinall can't make nearly as much money fighting anybody but him. It matters, right? So I don't know, man. We'll see what happens with that. Something still tells me on the inside we get John Jones Aspinall at some point. But I am noticing a little bit less confidence coming from Dana White when he talks about whether or not that fight will get made. At any rate, let's move on to our next topic. Ilia Topuria's championship anniversary. Now, I'm going to tell y'all, a lot of people, like Alexander Volkov, has a ton of fans. So, when you start talking about the anniversary of when Volkanovski lost the championship, it's a sore spot for a lot of people. And Ilia Topuria might be, he, dude is a, what do you want to call it? He is a suave, debonair troll. Like he's got the whole stylish, like he is a villain, kind of a like that sleek, well-dressed villain kind of vibe. But then he just takes the little jabs here and there, and he knows what he's doing, right? So the thing about Topuria is, if we listen to Bo Nickel said on his podcast maybe about 2-3 weeks ago that Topuria was going to rematch Alexander Volkanovski at UFC 314 in the main event. It sounded like a leak. We haven't heard it confirmed yet. It definitely seems like UFC 314 needs a main event. Right now, based off of all of the fights that are confirmed for that card, we'd be looking at Alexander Pantoja against Kai Kara-France rematch as the main event. You know the UFC never likes to go with a flyweight fight as the main event. It happened at UFC 310, but that only happened because Bilal Muhammad had to pull out of the fight against Shavkat Rakhmonov because he had the bone infection. Usually, that's not what they want, right? So with time to still work things together and work things out, you got to believe they're working on a bigger fight to be their main event. Flyweight led pay-per-views just don't sell well. Pantoja at 301, when he fought Steve Erceg, actually turned out to be a really good fight. I think I saw some numbers said that joint did like 70,000 pay-per-views. It might not even been that much. They don't want that. So they're going to come up with a main event. I got to believe it's probably Topuria. I think this is the last time Topuria fights outside of Spain. They owe him a pay-per-view there. And I know they would prefer to do it with him as the champion. They probably can't put it together yet. And they don't want him to sit on the shelf all this time. Also, the other thing is he wants to go up to lightweight. So I do believe that his next fight will be his last one at featherweight. Unless he was to lose. If he loses, then he might want to get some get back before he goes back up. But I'm be honest, I don't know. Volkanovski had a really good first round against Topuria. A lot of people don't realize that, and they don't remember it because all they remember is him getting knocked out. And in the second round, I think it was the second round. All they remember is him getting knocked out. But he really fought really well in the first round. But that's the thing about Topuria. You will have some success early sometimes, but it's before he cuts you down and cuts off the cage. And now he's starting to land those hammers. And when he starts to land those hammers, every featherweight that he has fought has ultimately turned into the nail. So we'll see what happens if and when that rematch does happen. But let's go on to the next subject. We're talking to PFL, the World Tournament at Universal Studios. Now, the field for the tournament in itself, I like, right? I love tournaments. I just love tournaments. Tournaments are awesome. Tournaments in MMA sometimes can get a little weird because of injuries. You have tournaments, just like the regular season thing, not as bad as the regular season thing, but the tournaments get a little weird because this girl gets injured, and all of a sudden somebody who didn't even earn their way to their spot has to step in just so this person doesn't get a bye and blah, blah. So that happens. And especially since, the tournament starts, if I'm not mistaken, in April, and they wrapping this joint up by August. So people have to fight. They're fighting out here. So that makes me a little bit nervous. And then on top of that, the card itself isn't fantastic. But what I do love is doing this joint in Universal Studios. That's kind of interesting to me. Like, it's obviously not a common fight spot. And what if the PFL could establish Universal Studios as like their mecca, right? So obviously the UFC has for the smaller events they have the Apex, and then they do their thing at T-Mobile Arena. That's like the home base for their pay-per-views, right? And in boxing, all of the big fights seem to be happening in Riyadh, right? Because of Turkey Al Sheikh. But what if the PFL could be like, you know what? We know that it's not the main mega MMA spot that everybody, or combat sports spot, people thinking about Orlando, Florida, Universal Studios. Everybody's not thinking that. But what if they could make it that? What if they figure out a way from a presentation standpoint to make this thing really, really dope? I kind of would love that. I'm planning on going to at least one of the events there because I really want that experience of what it's like to see, um, you know, high level MMA in Universal Studios. What are they going to do with the venue? I'm interested, so I want to see. So beyond that, and of course my guy Impa Kasana guy is in there, so that's my guy. I love Impa. Interviewed him multiple times. One of the absolute coolest. If Impa fights and he is not like fighting your brother or your cousin or your boyfriend or something, if he's not fighting somebody that you know and love, it is tough for me to understand how anybody would ever root against Impa. He's such a cool dude. Like so, I'll be watching for those reasons. All right, next subject: Dana White and the historic UFC broadcast deal. The UFC is about to. I'm trying to tell you, this deal is about to blow somebody's. If my eyebrows still grew in as dark as they used to, they would blow my eyebrows off. That's how big this deal is going. It's going to be crazy. Now, I want to hear in the comments, and also if you guys have not done this yet, please like and subscribe to the channel. We're moving pretty well. We had a nice little Javante Davis and a Floyd Mayweather interview, and we got more interviews coming up. I'm working on a Shakur Stevenson interview, so hopefully we can lock that down, as well as Drawn Boots Ennis, and also some stuff on the MMA side as well. But I want to know in the comments, which network streaming service would you like to see the UFC land with, right? Don't be shocked if somehow they end up on Dazn. I'm not saying for sure that, and that's not really my prediction. I also feel like Netflix has an opportunity, but Dazn, everything's going Saudi, in a lot of ways with this, and with the UFC working with Turkey Al Sheikh to start a boxing organization that's going to start later this year. From what I'm understanding, it's like everything from 126-pound weight division and up. It'll have. There's a possibility it could be like a fifth governing body once it reaches its full potential. With them starting that and being there in relationship with the Saudis, and the Saudis having, having business relationships with Golden Boy and with Queensberry, with Matchroom, and all of those promotions are with Dazn. It would make sense, honestly. Just think about it, how UFC could get in there, whatever the boxing league that's going to start. I don't know if it's going to be Zuffa Boxing. I don't know what they're going to call it. But once that gets in there, it's all on Dazn. It makes it where you're kind of centralizing the combat sports. Once the fighters from this upcoming boxing organization get going, if there is some sort of huge fight that can be made, it makes it easier to be made with people from Golden Boy, people from Matchroom, Queensberry, like all of that comes in, right? The only people really still on the outside looking in is the Premier Boxing Champion people, and that really is only like a few guys that are bringing in real things. So, I mean, even the PFL, and maybe that might be an issue. Maybe the PFL may have an issue, but obviously they wouldn't have as much sway to be able to kind of stop Dazn from making this offer. But everything, so much combat sports would there be on Dazn. So that is one to think about. Prime's also a possibility. I'm sure they'll make a nice bid. Honestly, I think Apple TV should really try. I just don't think that they have really done everything that they could do. to really really try to blow out what could happen with sports with them. But Netflix is one that I think is very interesting too. So I want to know in the comments who you guys see the UFC landing with when it comes to their upcoming broadcast. It's going to be one of the biggest stories in sports in 2025 as we wait to see who that's going to be. I believe the deal expires in October, if I'm not mistaken. It's something to that effect. So we'll watch to see. Last but not least, depending on who you ask and how much you care, Conor McGregor's future is in doubt. You could bet it is. So I don't know, man. At one point in time, I can't believe this, and it was so funny, right on X. Conor was just talking, saying Conor stuff, and I just got to the point. I was just like, okay, I'm just tired of hearing, dude. Like, like it was a point where everything he said to a degree, even if you didn't like it, it was kind of entertaining. Now it's just annoying. Now I wonder, is he trying to get like I feel like he's trying to do stuff that will make the UFC want to separate with him so that he can then go and do other things, exhibition fights and bare knuckle and this, that, and the third. I feel like that's almost what he wants to do. I do not think, like, he has 2 fights left on his UFC deal. I don't think he'll ever have those fights. I'm gonna be honest. I really don't. I think what we might see is the UFC go ahead and sign this deal for their new broadcaster, which I think, so obviously this was a good segue. I think we might see them in, because Jake Paul mentioned this, and Jake Paul was on to something, I think, when he talked about this. The UFC is negotiating their next broadcast rights deal. Having the potential of 2 Conor McGregor fights on that contract is instantly brings value. But I'm gonna be honest, the people bidding for these services have to really ask themselves, how confident are we that Conor's ever gonna fight again in the UFC or anywhere else outside of, like, in the alley or something? I mean, you're fighting the alley, you might be fighting the alley right now, but in the UFC where he has to jump through some hoops, I'm be honest, I just don't. There's no are you guys looking at the guy who walks on stage and walks different? Does he look like he'll ever fight in the UFC again? And it's not even about, is he out of shape or is he literally, he's got to be walking around at 195 or something right now. It's got to be. And he's not fat, but he's got to be in that range. What weight? So is he's going to cut to 170? Okay. Okay. I'm going to be honest with you. I think I got a better chance of getting to 170 than Conor. And I'm promise you, I'm in another weight class besides Conor. So I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see it. I think Connor's UFC career is over. I would love to be wrong about that, because love Conor or hate Conor, there is nothing like a Conor card. It's nothing like it. And those of us who have been around the UFC, myself, I've covered combat sports for 17 years now and covered the UFC for all that time. I've been a UFC fan for over 30 years. I'm talking about from UFC 1 all the way on. I know this sport well. There's no card like a Conor card. So to think that we'll never get another Conor card, that's kind of crazy. And as much as Topuria, pretty much patterns his game after Conor, he's like, reminds me of one of my favorite rappers back in the day was AZ. I still think he's an awesome lyricist, but he had a line that reminds me of a comparison between Ilia Topuria and Conor McGregor. He says, "See me, I'm just as foul as you, but you ain't got no style in you." Topuria seems to be really trying to embody that whole concept. Like, I'm just as good, I'm just as nasty, I'm just as deadly as you ever were. But I had more style and more couth in the way that I carry myself. And that's how Topuria is pulling it. But I'm going to be honest. he's not the global draw that Conor was. He's not. And I don't think he ever will be. He is a star, and he does have it, but his it is a different level than where Conor's was. Conor is a combat sports legend. Love him or hate him. And I think those days of him really, really doing that are gone. So that sucks, but I think that's the truth. That's all I got for you guys today. I sincerely appreciate you watching. Please make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. As always, peace.